All right, people. Midweek report time. So, a whole lot to unpack in this one because we got a very, very busy weekend ahead with the fights that are on. So, there's the PBC show, there's the Boxer show in the UK, which will be on at kind of our time. And then we have the Matchroom show headlined by Subra Mateus in Puerto Rico. So, there's three big shows this weekend. A lot to talk about those fights, a lot to preview, and obviously a lot to review over the course of the weekend. But during the week, we also seen plenty of boxing news. Now, one of the things that a lot of people were talking about earlier this week, and myself included, was the footage that emerged of Tyson Fury being escorted out of a bar in Morecambe, being absolutely, drunk. He was gonzo. He was out of it. And again, God knows how much it would take for a 6'7", 6'8", nearly 300-pound man to be that drunk is quite, you got to wonder how much it would take. But you look at that, and as I said, I don't begrudge Tyson Fury after a hard training camp, after a fight, stuff like that, to be, going out and enjoying himself, having a few drinks, stuff like that. I don't begrudge him a bit of a break. I don't begrudge him that. But if you want to give yourself the best chance of winning this rematch, if you want to go into this fight, right the wrong, and if it's lit this fire under you, which he's released a training video here, where he says, the king will reclaim the throne. Usyk, I'm coming for you. The path to redemption is all mine. I know what I have to do. I saw my shortcomings. Best believe I am invincible. Right. Now, if Fury... So, it went from Fury only losing because of the conflict in Alexander Usyk's country, his team saying, he won the fight, this, that, and the other, and, people like Low IQ making out as though that the cross Usyk was kissing was, an inhaler or something? Yeah, to now he knows his shortcomings. Well, there was a lot of shortcomings in that fight. There was. And he needs to learn from them. Now, Alexander Usyk also had shortcomings in that fight. He didn't have a perfect fight. He's already reviewing that in the training camp. Now, Tyson Fury, to make this video 2 days after that was shown, him being drunk. I mean, for me, I think that's kind of almost for himself. Because again, you got to look at it. You got to look how he was in the build to the Usyk fight. At the end of the day, right, they did in I think it was early April actually. They did a completely random press conference in Morecambe. I remember getting an email about that. They emailed everyone at 5 o'clock. I think the day or so before it. So, people would have had to drop everything to go to Morecambe, which is way out the way. It's up in the northwest, of the UK. So, a lot of people who, work in boxing media, and some of them who do it just as a hobby, are based in around London, Birmingham region. Majority anyway. So, for a lot of them, it would have been an absolute nightmare to get up there. They do that. They don't have a member of the team, Usyk. And it's Tyson Fury listing the reasons as to why Usyk can't beat him. And for me, it was just like at the time when you were watching, you were just like, what the hell was that? Was that just to kind of, say to yourself in front of others and have them, acknowledge and, oh yeah, he's right, this happened and that, was it something like that, just to kind of motivate yourself? And for me, it's almost like that's emerged of Fury being escorted out for being too drunk. And there's nothing, I don't want to say there's nothing necessarily wrong with getting too drunk. I mean, everyone's done it at the end of the day. It's not like he was escorted out for bad behaviour. It's not like he'd done something really bad or anything like that. He was just escorted out for being too drunk. Security will do that. And again, I don't really... Listen, who hasn't been escorted out of a place for being too drunk? Who hasn't been, paralytic? They've been so drunk. It happens to most people, the majority. So I'm not having to go with them for that again. But that comes out, and then you go into the gym, you're hitting the bag and saying, I'm back, this, that, and the other. And it's kind of more the same. It's like, looking for that approval. Oh, now I'm back. And it's amazing to me how many people are looking at Tyson Fury going into this rematch, even before the whole drunk incident. And we're like, yeah, he's winning the rematch. It's based off of what? Oh, well, he can right the wrongs from the first time around. What makes you think he's going to be better first or second time around? At the end of the day, he took more punishment in that fight than Alexander Usyk. And it's mad that you see people saying, well, it was split decision, as if all of a sudden, every fight in history that was a split decision or majority decision means it was a close fight. Canelo Floyd was a majority decision. Was that fight close? Triple G Canelo was a draw the first time around. Was that fight close? Manny Pacquiao, Tim Bradley got the nod. Did he legit win? How many fights throughout history have been scored a close fight, like a majority decision, when you know realistically it went one way. It clearly went one way. So the Fury fans are acting like because one judge had it for Fury, which he shouldn't have, that all of a sudden makes this fight close and Tyson Fury just needs to be a little bit better in the rematch. Well, he needs to be a lot better. And if Alexander Usyk is trying to get better, and he's already ticking over, he's already learning from his mistakes, he's already training a little bit, probably not doing full-blown camp, then he's going into this fight fresh, 100% head screwed on. If Tyson Fury, before now, is going out getting drunk, and then all of a sudden makes a video of himself in the gym hitting the bag, in the wake of all that coming out, and again, he took a load of punishment in that fight, was nearly knocked out, was nearly stopped, hurt worse than he's ever been hurt, was hit lows, was hit plenty, hit the head and body, all right, slowed down noticeably. If that's happened to him first time around, and bear in mind, Tyson Fury is a fighter who, when the pressure is on, he tends to perform the best. Now, the pressure was on immensely in that Usyk fight. Immensely. He knew that, undisputed. And he performed as best he could, it wasn't enough. And again, you're talking about an aging fighter in Tyson Fury, someone who is younger, but is aging. How is he going to perform better second time around? You people making it out as though it's a guarantee that he wins the rematch. What? Again, that kind of shows to me how disrespected Usyk is, because you had the same kind of look going into the Joshua rematch where people were like, oh yeah, Joshua will be better this time around, he'll get the job done. And Joshua was in the best, I don't think maybe not the best shape, he wasn't in bad shape, but he trained the hardest for that. He did everything, changed the team, did everything, it wasn't enough. And all of a sudden, you fast forward a year later, a little over a year later, he knocks out Francis Ngannou. Yeah, he's back, he's ready to be. It's like, does whatever Alexander Usyk does in terms of going to people's backyards, being in shape, looking good, always performing well, and really, when have you ever seen him have a really shaky performance? And bear in mind, he's fighting top fighters. He's beaten them all, and yet it's a case of, well, the opponent who he beat, all he needs to do is just do it, and he's better, now he's knocked out Ngannou, so Usyk's, that's just, Usyk is done. It's like, no, it's not that straightforward. So that is the situation. Tyson Fury back in the gym after all that. Look, some people have said that they don't think the rematch is going to happen in December. It is a long way away, but again, as I said, in boxing terms, it's not that far. And again, for an aging fighter, you're cutting it close there. So, will it happen? I would say probably, but look, I wouldn't rule it out not happening. I wouldn't rule that out, alright? So, there's that. Now, Bob Arum has confirmed that Naoya Inoue is planning to return in September. He's going to defend his undisputed titles and won't move to featherweight until next year. Which is interesting, because I would have thought that Inoue would have, after he beat Marlon Tapales, would have just gone and said, okay, done 122, now up to 126, but now he's obviously sticking around, he feels comfy at the weight, and obviously then he can try and see what the landscape of 126 looks at. And it doesn't look incredible, to be honest with you. I mean, yes, you've got good fighters there like Nicky Ball, but it's not an incredible division. I don't think so anyway, to say the least. It's been stronger at certain points in history, and this kind of isn't one of those times. So he won't be. And Eddie Hearn has confirmed he won't be on the Joshua undercard, which is a shame. It would have been nice to see him at Wembley Stadium. But the Joshua undercard is looking strong. I mentioned the likes of Jay Opataya, Hamza Shearer, Joshua Buatsi versus Willie Hutchinson, which is a really good fight. It's a really, really good fight. Fabio Wadley versus Fraser Clark 2 as well. So just those names alone and the fights they could potentially be in, that to me, that card is just... Honestly, that card is phenomenal. I really can't wait to see what they're going to try and do with the likes of Opataya and Hamza Shearer, amongst others, because you would imagine there might be other names as well being announced sooner or later to potentially appear on this card. And with Opataya, the speculation is that he'll face the winner of Riakporhe Billam Smith, which is obviously this weekend. And this kind of nice little way of going and transitioning into the next topic, which is obviously Richard Riakporhe versus Chris Billam Smith. The rematch is happening this Saturday, Selhurst Park in South London. Now, I didn't do a prediction video for this, I would have Riakporhe as favourite. I would. Bill Smith's last performance wasn't incredible. Having said that, you look at Riakporhe and yeah, he hasn't gone the distance since 2021. The last time he went the distance over 8 rounds, he's knocked out everyone he's faced since. But he fought in an 8-rounder back in November. I forget what card that was. I don't know if it was a boxer card, but I forget. It wasn't a main event fight. He beat Glowacki, who had seen much better days. He beat Fabio Chirici, I think it's how you say that guy's name. I think he's Italian, in 2 rounds. Was never that good. I think he lost to Tommy McCarthy, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he did a couple of years ago. So, again, nothing to write home about. Beat Ola Duradola. You know, he's not beat... And Ola Duradola, in his day, which was probably about a decade ago, was all right. He was, contender. But in 2021, I mean, yeah, there you go. I mean, he looked old in there, like really old against Ryakpor. I remember when he fought Kudryashov on Povetkin Whack undercard, he looked a lot. He looked more his age then. I think he was still in his 30s. So Ryakpor hasn't fought the greatest of opponents, but I think he'll have the beating of Bill Smith, to be honest with you. I do. I think he'll have the beating of him. The last fight, or the first fight, I should say, when they fought a couple of years ago, 5 years ago now, I think it was over 10 rounds, and it was a split decision. So let's see how this fight goes for Chris Bill Smith and Ryakpor. I would make Ryakpor favourite. I would. Chamberlain versus Massey. It's for the vacant EBU title. That's actually a really good fight. It's a really good fight. Again, I would make Chamberlain favourite, but Jack Massey, he's not a bad fighter. Under no stretch. He's a good fighter. He's a good, solid domestic level cruiserweight. So let's see how that goes. Ben Whittaker against that Ezra. I'm not even going to try and say that last name. But yeah, I was not impressed with Ben Whittaker last time. He needs a full-time trainer in his team. He needs a voice in the corner to listen to and respect as well. So yeah, we'll see how he looks. Dan Aziz in a comeback fight. I think it's only an 8-rounder against Hervek Sepp. I think it's how you say that guy's name. So I'm not expecting a great deal from Dan Aziz. In terms of boxer cards, it's actually not a bad card. It's actually not a bad card because the standards, as I've said several times, for boxer cards have been so low. It's just, you couldn't. The bar he set is so low, it's going to take some raising. So I think now with Shalom, he seems to be focusing more so now on quality over quantity. He wasn't doing that many shows. He wasn't doing a crazy amount of shows prior, but he is doing less now, but they look pretty good. So that's all well and good. Like I'm happy with this card. He's actually announced, I believe the fight is, I'll see if I can find it here. He announced a show, and he's supposed to be doing these stadium shows now in Barnsley Stadium. I think that's called Oakwell, which was, Zach Chelly versus Callum Simpson at Oakwell. I believe that'll be for the British and Commonwealth title. How full are you going to get these stadiums? I don't necessarily, but I know Oakwell is a championship size stadium. It's, it's a reasonably sized stadium. So how likely are you going to fill it? I remember when Billy Joe fought in Stevenage Stadium, which I think Stevenage are kind of lower league. I think they are still in the Football League, if I'm not mistaken, but it's a small-ish stadium. It's a real Football League stadium, and that was fine. Barnsley for a British title fight? Okay, let's see how it goes. In terms of the Tank Davis card this weekend, I didn't realise there's loads of fights on this card. There is absolutely loads. Elijah Garcia, Roman Villa, Mixeo, Carlos Adames, Gary Russell Anton. Realistically, the only 2 fights I care about are Frank Martin versus Tank Davis and Vodcek versus Benavidez. Now, Vodcek Benavidez is a good fight. Benavidez obviously be up at 175 pounds. If we were talking about a peak Vodcek, and it's weird because a peak Vodcek retired and then came back. Because if you looked at him against Beterbiev, I know he got stopped in the end, but he was giving Beterbiev a hard fight. Don't let anyone tell you, it was easy. No, it was a tough fight for Beterbiev. I think he was behind on one of the 2 of the judges' scorecards in that fight. So Vodcek at his peak was a nightmare. And him against Benavidez, peak Vodcek, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I mean, I might even favour Vodcek. Vodcek now in his comeback, he is not a shot fighter. He's not a shot-worn fighter. He's not over the hill or anything like that. But you can tell he's lost a little bit of spring in his step. You can tell that. But I think this is still going to be a very good fight, a very competitive fight. But now, because obviously we're not dealing with a peak at his best, 100% best Vodcek, I'll be making Dave Benavidez favourite to win this fight. But I really do like this fight. I think it's a brilliant fight. And the main event, Tank Davis, Frank Martin, when it was announced, I was kind of like, Frank Martin is not a bad fighter. Under no stretch of the imagination is he a bad fighter. He's a good fighter. But him against Tank Davis, and I know Tank Davis is not, he's not everyone's cup of tea to say the least. But he is, whatever you think about Tank Davis as a person, I think he is a tremendous talent. I really do. I've looked at Tank Davis for many years, and I've always thought tremendous talent. He can punch, he's fast, he can do a lot in there. It's a shame that he's so inactive, because I think this is his first fight since he fought Ryan Garcia last April last year. And Garcia has had 2 fights since then. I don't know how active Martin has been, Frank Martin. I know he had a win the end of 22. I think he's had at least 1 fight since then. I think anyway, I'm not 100% sure on that one. But Martin I always thought was a good fighter. Not at the level of a Tank Davis or anyone like that, but I think he'll be able to give a good account of himself. I think Tank Davis is going to win, probably by stoppage. But Frank Martin will give a good account of himself in this fight, I believe. And that's going to be a fun fight to review and have a look at. Because I know the first, I should say, pay-per-view Amazon Prime PBC did together was a really good show. I think that was Tim Tszyu versus Fundora. It was a really, really good show, really good fight night. Excuse me. It's been announced Jerome Boots Ennis, who wasn't meant to fight Cody Crowley. That was his mandatory. He had to pull out, Cody Crowley did. I think it was something to do with his eyes. I think he failed an eye exam or something like that. He will now, Boots Ennis, face David Avanesian in Philadelphia. So I'm glad that the homecoming that he's having is not gone. So they're not going to just wipe that off. I'm glad that that's still happening, which is a good thing. And Avanesian, yeah. Avanesian is a solid European level fighter. And that is a solid level to get to. But when you put him in at the upper echelons, and you got to bear in mind that I think Avanesian at one stage had a regular WBA title. I know he had a version, and I think he beat Shane Mosley years ago, about a decade nearly ago, and that was obviously an ancient Shane Mosley. And then he lost to Lamont Peterson, who again had seen better days. He went on to get obliterated by Errol Spence. I think his next fight or the fight after that. So even if you're talking about a younger Avanesian, when you put him in there against, I don't even want to say, just say world level welterweight, not even the elite, he came up short, or he made very hard work of it against the former elite in Shane Mosley, who was way over the hill. He was ancient at the time. I think Mosley retired after that fight. And yeah, he was able to either, scrape a win or lose decisively. And when you put him in there against the elite like Terence Crawford, the elite, well, he's not even competitive in that fight. Against Boots, who I think will go on, if he's not already, go on to be elite, he is going to get obliterated. It might be more competitive than the Crowley fight would have been, we won't know. But I think he is going to get obliterated as David Avanesian. European level is a big jump, depending on the weight division, to world level. And especially if we're talking about elite fighters like Boots Ennis. Yeah, he is going to get obliterated on the 13th, Saturday the 13th of July. Ain't going to be pretty. I see Jaron Anderson, I should say, is now training with Sugar Hill Stewart for his fight against Martin Bacoli on August the 3rd. Listen, that is going to be a horror of a fight. When I say horrible fight, it's going to be a horrible fight, I think, win or lose for Jaron Anderson. Because I still just can't grasp my head around. You fought Charles Martin about this time last year. Bob Arum, everyone in your team was kind of like, okay, we were rushing him. He beat Charles Martin, beat him fairly decisively, but we need to pump the brakes a little bit, pump it back a little bit. So they brought him down a little level, fought Mary, and that was really, Mary was just negative, and you kind of look and you think, okay, now you can move him a little bit. He's still young, you can move Anderson a little bit. Fight Martin Bacoli is not moving Anderson a little bit. That is, that's going right in at the deep end, because Bacoli is a fantastic heavyweight, and he's a top 10 easily heavyweight. Knocking on the door of the top 5 is Martin Bacoli. He's a big, strong, hard-hitting heavyweight who, honestly, if Anderson has a leaky defense, if he has any chinks in his armor, which some people speculate that he does in terms of mental fragility. We've seen him in, that clip with Roy Jones, and he's talked about wanting to get out of boxing early. Yeah, he could find himself in big trouble in there against Martin Bacoli. And I think that win or lose, he's going to have a torrid time in there. And to be honest with you, I'm not normally a betting man. But if the odds are in favour of Anderson, I'm going to be looking and seeing what the odds are like for Bacoli, because I would imagine, look, if I was doing the odds, I'd have Bacoli favourite. But you don't know what way the odds makers do it. And if Bacoli is an underdog, I'd be putting money on him. Because honestly, I'm going with Bacoli to win that fight. Seriously, I'm going with, but you can change up your trainer, and Sugar Hill Stewart is a very, very good trainer. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. He's a very good trainer. But I just don't think, I can't see at this point in Anderson's career him being able to beat a Martin Bacoli. I certainly can't see it. That's not to mean it can't happen, but yeah, I certainly don't see it. I really, truly don't. I don't see it. This is an interesting one. This is according to the New York Times. Never thought I'd be reading the New York Times on a boxing kind of review channel, but hey, Saudi boxing chiefs led by His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh are reportedly now in talks with sports major promotional companies about a revolutionary deal to bring them together to create a global boxing league. It's claimed around 200 of the world's best boxers could be signed to 12 weight classes, having around 15 boxers to fight each other regularly in the future to reshape the landscape of the entire sport. So kind of like a league table, almost in a way. If you think of the concept of what was it called? Not the World Boxing Super Series, that was kind of knockout phase. I mean, I suppose it was kind of the same with, but the world, what was it called? Super 6 at super middleweight. And that was really super, where they literally got like the best middleweights or super middleweights you could get. The likes of Andre Ward. Sergio Bica fight in it. He might have. Arthur Abraham, Jermaine Taylor fought in it. If I didn't mention Andre Ward. It was kind of everyone, and it was kind of, he fights him, and Andre Ward was obviously came out on top in it. And that would be amazing. A lot of people have said that a boxing league would be great, because having a kind of knockout phase, you could actually win a title. So you say like the World Boxing Super Series, right, which is gone now. But let's say, you win it. Let's just say hypothetically, right? Fighter A wins it, right? But his draw is style that suits him, another style that suits him, another style that suits him in the final. Whereas he's avoided, technically a lesser fighter, but that style could be a nightmare. A league is kind of, look at the Premier League. Man City have the best team in the league. Do they win every game? No. And I know it's obviously football is different, but you know what I mean. You could be the best, but you're not going to win every game. You're not going to win every single, you're not going to win every single boxing match. I was just thinking, like, who was the last time a team did win the league undefeated? It was Arsenal in 2004. And they drew loads of games. I think they drew a lot of games. I think they drew over 12 games. I remember that season very well. Very well. No one could touch Arsenal that season. And even then, they still didn't score as many points as City did in 21 with a couple of losses. That's incredible. Shows how good City are. Unfortunately, as a United fan, I'm saying that. They are a good side. They really are. But yeah, a boxing league would be amazing. Because you really could, you would see upsets. You'd be like, oh, well, he beat him, who's number 3 in the league, and now he's fighting number 8. He's going to beat him. What, he's lost? It would be amazing. How likely is it? It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of money. You have to, obviously we've seen that egos can be put aside. You look at Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, I think Ben Shalom's getting involved now, Bob Arum. Egos can be put aside when the check is big enough. And the Saudis seem to have checks that are just, they are big. Big. So let's see what happens with that. In terms of, obviously, Matchroom DAZN are doing Sorel Mateus versus Liam Paro this weekend. I haven't already talked about that. I think it's a great fight. I've already done a preview of that. I think Sorel Mateus is going to win. But I think it'll be an excellent fight nonetheless. Lads, I will leave it there. I think that's pretty much it. There was a lot of news to cover in the last 25 minutes. I'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. And for now, lads and lassies, I'll leave it there. Peace.